present as well. All other microphones will be muted. If you have any questions, you can type them in the chat window. This is at the right-hand side of your screen. If you can find it, you can type yes. I also would like to mention that this webinar for the potential applicants of the third fellowship call. And before we start, I would like to invite our project team leader, Monica Bucurenciu, to give a little bit of insight of our project and the leadership program that we are running. Monica?
Hi. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone can see me and hear me. As Anna was just saying, my name is Monica Bucurenciu, and I'm the team leader of the Eastern Partnership Civil Society Facility Project. I know that you are all very much interested in how to prepare better applications for this year's fellowship program. But we thought that before going into details, it would be a good opportunity also to tell you a little bit about the context in which this fellowship program exists and was created. So as some of you might have seen from the website of our project is not just about the fellowships. Our project is part of a wider EU initiative to support the civil society organizations and civil society activists in the Eastern Partnership region. It covers all of the 6 countries, so Armenia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine, and it has several components, the fellowships being one of these components. But just to walk you through quickly through the other things that we are doing in the project. So we have a small component on research-related activities. So we produce, mostly at the request of the EU delegations, research on civil society in the region. We have quite a big component on e-learning. We are developing several e-learning courses for civil society organizations in your countries, and I very much encourage you to follow our Facebook page and also to go to our website and check the e-learning platform, because we will be launching several e-learning courses this year. We also have each year hackathons when we bring together civil society representatives and programmers to develop digital tools for citizens. And we have a component on communicating about the work of civil society, the good work of civil society in the region. So the fellowships are coming in this context, in the context in which the EU, as I said, is trying to support the development of civil society organizations in the region. And I think what the EU is hoping to get out of the fellowships is basically to support or to help support those activists and those young people from the region who are EU-minded, who are but hopefully future leaders in their countries, either in the political sphere or civil society sphere or in other contexts, and who can be either at the beginning of their professional itineraries or they are already midway. And that's why there is the age requirement that Anna will be talking about. So this year, I think it's worth saying that we have probably more interest than we've had in previous years, because the fellowship program now is starting to be known. And we are very happy to see a lot of you here attending the webinar. I think it's just another indication of this increased interest in the program. And as you probably might know from some of your friends or acquaintances who have applied to the program and were accepted, it is quite a successful program. And it would, if you are successful yourself, you will have a lot of interesting opportunities as a fellow. So I think that's it for me from now. I will also be, Anna will be giving you a lot more detailed and specific information about the application process and how to increase your chances to be selected. And then I will be intervening along the way, maybe to add some things. Thank you very much. And I think it's back to you for now.
Yeah. Let's looking at the presentation. So I would like to point out that this webinar is designed for potential applicants for this third call of our Civil Society Fellowship Program, not for any other grant applications or whatever. So it's specifically done for the needs of the application that will be submitted at the end of this month. Okay, the topics we will be discussing. So first of all, we will look at the essential part of the application. So this is some kind of minimal requirements that you need to meet in order to proceed to the stage of assessment. Secondly, we will look at the elements that evaluators of the applications will be looking at, and it's more likely if you have that element in your application, so you can ensure that you are successful. So I can't say that it could help you to be successful. This is the first thing. And the last section of this webinar will be questions and answers. We have already received lots of questions. We tried to sort them out and generalize, and we will try to answer all other questions if arise later after when we finish this presentation. Okay. This slide presents, first of all, the essential part of the application. And, well, as you all understand, so you have to complete all the parts of your application when you are submitting. If you omit something, if you, for example, forget to send your action proposal or action budget, or you haven't filled fully the application form, so there will be questions. And taking into account the great interest from the region, so I'm pretty sure there will be plenty of application. I don't know if the selection committee will have enough time to come back to you and ask, oh, well, we have a question here, we have a question there. So it's better to fill in fully, answer all the questions. The first thing I wanted to mention, so application form. What the evaluators will be looking there? Why they included 4 sections into it and ask you to fill in. If any of the sections are included, any of the questions are included, this means this is important. You have to just look at it from the perspective that if a question is asked, it will be, so the answer will be somehow assessed. So be careful when you will be filling in the answers. Well, first of all, you have to make sure that you meet all the eligibility criteria. I hope all of you had a chance to read the guidelines properly, and you are familiar with eligibility criteria. So look at the age, place of residence, language. So I don't want you to lose your time if you are over 36 years old now. So there is no need for you to fill in or prepare the application. So this means your application will be disregarded, so it will be rejected. So the second thing that evaluators will be looking at, these are potential leadership skills. So, and section 2 and 3 must be filled in. The questions should be well thought and answered accordingly. Think yourself why these questions are included, what the evaluators would like to see, and then answer accordingly. Okay. The next big part of your application will be your action proposal. Action proposal is essential part, and as it was mentioned in the guidelines, It is aimed at addressing problems in the lives of the applicants' communities, target groups, and it also should develop applicants' leadership skills. Okay, so when you will be developing your small project, your action, you have to keep in mind these two aims that should be accomplished. So from one side, you develop your leadership skills. From the other side, there should be a visible results of implementation, visible changes of the action that you are implementing. And the third important part of the application, of course, it's an action budget. We expect that that the costs included that are eligible. Please refer to the guidelines section 553, and you also have to link your prepared action budget to the action itself, to the activities they are planning to implement. So all the included costs should be relevant to the activities. So as I mentioned already, so here are the small tips to increase scores for your application. So we will be, well, first of all, we will be looking at the 3 important documents when we will be evaluating applications. We will be looking at application form and how you have answered the questions in section 2 and 3. It is important. Make sure that, well, I'm mentioning again, make sure that you read the questions carefully and then write the answers. And secondly, also don't forget to revise your CV in line what you are filling in the application form. So why do we need your CV? We need it in order to, you are filling in the form some information about your employment, your previous involvement with the civil society. You have to include information that could support and somehow highlight experience in your CV as well. So your CV will help to increase the points for your application, right? And this one more thing I wanted to mention: when you design your action proposal should be and your skills presented in your CV, they should be linked, and we have to see that what you are planning to do. You have enough skills doing this. And this should be highlighted in your CV. Now we are coming to the action proposal itself. So the tips that will increase the scores. Show in your action that the purpose that it will have a positive impact on your community. Not only just guessing that, well, it's probably will have. You have to clearly describe, yes, I will do this, this, and this, and I'm sure the changes will be the following. So it will be clear in your application, in your proposal that the impact of your action will be positive changes that you planned, and you have to write this. Don't leave the evaluators to look at it and guess, oh yeah, maybe yes or maybe not. So try to assure the selection committee that yes, this will happen. The second point here would be also realistic planning. There are a number of questions that are asking, can we start, when can we start, how can we plan our activities? You have to keep in mind that your proposed action must be implemented within the period of 6 months, from May to November 2019. You can start later, but maybe you will manage to finish all the activities within 1 or 2 months. Well, we don't know what kind of action you are planning, but in no way it should be prolonged for 1 year, for a few months. Make sure that it is done within 6 months. And the other thing here is that you might include so many activities that will not be realistic. So, and the selection committee will also look at this and say, oh, this guy doesn't know what he is planning. Probably we will not need so many activities. Try to think realistically. The last thing I wanted to mention, this is the logic of the events. So draft your action proposal and make sure that proposed activities will lead to the expected realistic results. So there is a logic. So where we are, what we need to do, and how we can get to the point where we expect it to be. So what kind of activities we need to do in order to address that needs. So the next very important part of your proposal should be communication part. And I would like to invite our communication expert, Elena, to join us and give you small hints on that part of your proposal. Elena? Oh.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes.
Oh, thank you. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I will be your secret Santa today. I have no web camera on my computer, so I will be just speaking and you can look at the presentation. So I have a very difficult task today to try to talk about the communication strategy and communication activities within 5 minutes. So let's try to see why communicating your project is so important, and how you need to plan your communication activities while developing your project proposals. So why it is important. It is very simple. If you are applying for any EU funds, within your grants agreement, you will see an obligation to communicate your project. And it's not because we want you to make your life more complicated or to increase your workload. First of all, it's very important for you and for your project, because proper communication can help you establish good relations with the community you are working for, find like-minded people, attract further funding, and to make your project even more sustainable. And another important aspect I would like to focus on is that once you receive the EU funds to implement your work, you should always remember that this money is taxpayers' money. So you, as a beneficiary of this money, should demonstrate to the taxpayers how the public money is spent and how the results of your work can impact the lives of people. So how to communicate your project effectively? First of all, start at day one of your project and continue through its entire lifetime and beyond. Remember that proper communication is not just about disseminating the final results of your project, of your activity, but it's really about communicating the whole action. Then think, plan, and act strategically. Try to understand from the very beginning, what do you want to achieve? Think about the issue you want to address or contribute to, and not the project itself. I hope very much that all of you who are here today you are here to address some critical issues in your communities, to solve some problems, and not just to get money for funding the project. Then talk to people about what you are doing. Make your action relevant for people's everyday life and try to show the impact your action may have on their lives. Explain them in a very easy language, using easy words, why your action is important for your community, for your city, for your village, for your neighbors. Visualize and be creative. You need to catch the attention of your audience with some visuals. Everyone likes photos, videos, animations. So do not just use texts. Make something really interesting for people. Then one important thing you should remember while preparing your project proposal: budget your communication activities. Do not forget to include communication and visibility costs into your budget. So if you plan, there were some questions regarding the specific examples of visibility actions to be proposed in the budget. So these are, if you plan to organize a lot of events, you may need the banner of your project. So put into the budget the cost of design and production. If you plan any publications, if you plan any some designs for the website, for the Facebook page, please put these costs into your budget. Do not forget about this line while budgeting your project. How do I go to the next slide, Anna? Is it me or?
Yeah, I can help you.
It's you. So now, very specific. When you prepare your someone else can we mute? Would you please mute the mic? Someone is talking. Okay, thank you. So in your action proposal, under the line proposed activities, you will see that you need to describe your communication plan, clearly indicating any intended dissemination channels. So try to think about communication activities in advance. Make the communication activities an integral part of your proposal. Ideally, for any project, not only for this for these applications you are submitting for this call, but for any projects, you need to develop a communication strategy. So, just a few words about the planning process and about the communication strategy. You need to start with your communication objectives. To do it, you just have to look at the objectives of your projects and try to understand how communication can help you to achieve those objectives. Then, of course, you need to know who your audience is. You need to know for whom you will prepare all the publications. People, the easier for you will be to communicate with them. You need to know what they already know about the issue you are addressing. You need to know what tools they are using. If you, for instance, doing a project for elderly people in your neighborhood, make an announcement for them on Facebook would be really not sufficient. So you need to know if they read newspapers, what media they use. All these type of things are very important. Then once you understand who you are talking to, you need to define your messages and need to understand what you want to say to your audience. So at the very beginning, define your key messages, the hashtags you will use in the social media. In the case of the EU-funded actions, like with these projects, you will need, in all your communications, you will need to also use the visibility tools like the logo of the European Union, the statement of the European Union. We will come back to this, all these issues later at the stage when we have new fellows. You will have all guidelines and recommendations from us how to use it and when to use it. Then, after you are set with the objectives, you know who your audience is, you know what to talk to them, only then try to choose the proper channels and tools which you are going to use for your communication with the audience. Whether it's you need a website, whether you need a Facebook page, do you engage media, which one, etc. And now it's time to implement the plan and, of course, to measure the impact of your activities. Don't forget about the evaluation. Even in your action proposal, in your project proposal, please mention how you are going to measure your communication activities, how you are going to check if they were achieved and if they were not achieved, what you are going to do in this case. So these are just very basic information about the communication activities and the key steps you need to implement for preparation of the project proposals. And now, Anna, if you just go through the next couple of slides. So just a few examples of what our previous fellows were doing to communicate the results and the progress of their projects. Like we lead Womanship Club from Armenia, or development studios from Ukraine. They created these separate pages on Facebook, which are quite popular now. If you go to the next slide, please. Some photos, also some examples of the promo materials produced by the fellows, like publications, banners, some posters, some how we call it, we lost connection after I finished my presentation, but the last slide was about some examples of the projects implemented by the fellows from the previous call. And here you can see some visibility materials, some visibility banners, publications, posters, and balloons for kids, which you need budget in your proposal when you prepare the budget for the whole action. So that's it. Thank you, Anna. The floor is yours.
I will continue. So, as we mentioned, there are a number of parts that are important. One of them was communication that Elena just finished. So the other parts that would be very important for the assessment of the proposal will be, this is follow-up of the action. We would like to see the applications that are not only will be live during the implementation, but also after the implementation of the action. So think how to make your action results sustainable. Keeping some, for example, keeping some activities going on after the completion of the action, or maybe of replication of it, but using maybe resources from other donors or other sources. So this will give you extra points at the evaluation. Organized internship, as we have already mentioned. So from one side, we would like to see that the leadership skills of an applicant are developed. And for the development of these skills, so there might be an option to get some arrangements with organization for internship or placement, we call it. So if you have this in mind as a part of your application, So you definitely should write why you have decided to choose this or that organization. You have to include a preliminary study plan. What you would like to study? What skills you would like to get during your internship? So this will be very important to see for the evaluation committee that you well thought how you're going to do this, that you really link the objectives of your action and the results. So make sure that you have this information included if you plan internship. Also about mentor, there are a number of questions about mentor. We do understand that some of the small actions and projects might require additional expertise that you don't have. In this case, it would be nice if you have someone who is experienced in that field to guide you on that issues. So if you feel yourself that you do need a mentor for a certain part of your action, so you can include the information on your mentor, so who you would like to see. Ideally, you should have already a person in mind who will, in case of a vote, so this person will be involved in the implementation. So, but make sure that you define the role of this mentor, at what stage he will be involved, what she will be doing, supporting you and achieving the results of your action. Okay, coming to a very important topic on the budget, eligibility of costs. Before submission your budget, make sure you double check that your expenses that you included into the budget are eligible. Consult again with the section 5.3 of the guidelines and make sure that you don't include fees for yourself. Because this fellowship, it's not for paying salary for yourself. These are the resources to implement your small project. So you can pay maybe your mentor, you can pay for internship, some kind of small compensation for the time they will be giving to you, but in no way include fees for yourself. It is very important if you can present your budget in a logical way. So you can see here on the slide, for example, you have a number of activities included in your action proposal, and your activities should be linked to the budget. For a selection committee, it will be very easy to see, okay, these are activities 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mentioned in your proposal, and these are the costs that you foresee for the implementation of your action. You can see here, so organization of training on something. These are just examples. I don't want you to just copy this completely. You have to budget your activities yourself. But the presentation is, so the organization of training, but what you are included for that, what do you need for organization of that training? You need a venue, this is 1.1. You need probably refreshments for the participants. You need prints, you might need some promotional materials, communication materials. This depends on what kind of action, what kind of event you are planning. And presentation of your budget this way would be very welcomed by the selection committee. The budget lines that are given as an example in the guidelines, this is just an example that you think about this or that cost that might occur during the implementation. But this is your responsibility to prepare the budget properly and to budget it according to the activities you will be implementing. I hope it is clear. I would like again to remind, we mentioned, I think, in the guidelines, but don't forget to include into your budget taxes. This is a very hot topic, and you have to keep in mind that taxes is your responsibility. We are in no way can advise what kind of taxes a fellow should pay, let's say in Georgia, or should pay in Armenia or Ukraine. You have to check with your country legislation if you have to pay any taxes on the fellowship that you will receive as an individual. Okay, so check it first. Make sure, just consult with the revenue, with the tax office, if you have to pay anything. So, and again, I would like to remind, this is your responsibility to prepare the budget that you can implement the action and be a good taxpayer in your country and have a good reputation. Don't forget to include bank charges. So, so this means, why I'm saying this, when we have an experience when we are transferring fellowship to the Eastern Partnership region, some banks are taking some charges, while taking a certain percentage of the amounts that arrive into your account. We are not in the position just to check with every bank in the region how much are they going to charge. See, so it is your responsibility to check with the bank and include these banking charges into your budget. Visa costs, it might be applicable if you foresee during your action implementation travel abroad. So check the prices, include these prices into the budget. The same is with the insurance. If you need to travel, for example, you have an arranged internship somewhere in Europe and you go there, you need to get a visa. In order to get a visa, you need to get an insurance. So make sure you check the prices for this and include it into the budget. Also, the costs related to the promotion of your action. So this is what Elena was talking before. So don't forget about these costs. While we will not, when you submit your budget and you are successful, you will receive a contract on the amount that you are budgeted. And if you forgot to include any of the costs, no additional money will be given. So you have to complete your action using that amount of money that you received. Now I would like to come to the section, we call it frequently asked questions. We try to sort them out according to the topics, and you can see here the questions itself. And me and Monica probably we will be commenting on this or that question. So age of the applicant. There were a number of questions related on the age. So if you are 18 years, you have to be between 18 and 36 years old, 35 years old on the date of submission of application, and specifically on the 31st of January 2019. If you are turned out 36 on the 2nd of February, you will be still eligible. Does the organization without any previous experience can apply for the fellowship programs? Well, first of all, I would like to point out that this fellowship is for individuals. It's not for organizations. And we will concede applications only from individuals. And individuals will receive contracts. And individuals will receive fellowship, the money, to individual account, not to organizational account. So I want to make clear, it's not for organizations, this is for individuals. Okay. Can my current workplace influence my eligibility for this fellowship call? No. Well, it doesn't matter where you work. Or you work at all, or maybe you just study, right? It is important that a proposed action is not within the current workplace duties. And it is stated in the guidelines that activities that are normally carried out by the applicants or affiliated entities as part of their usual work. So this means you can't propose an action that will be done as a part of your current duties and responsibilities at your current workplace. So this is the only condition that might apply. Can you please clarify? Could you please clarify part of the application form concerning placement? Regarding the placement, this is again, I think I have already mentioned today. If you plan to include internship or placement as a part of your action proposal, this section of the application form should be filled in. This is section 4. If you do not propose any internship, so this part is not relevant and there is a comment there. You have to fill in part 4 only in case if it is relevant to you. Question number 5, I'm associated with a number of organizations. What entity should write a recommendation letter for me? Well, it's up to an applicant to select an organization they feel comfortable to ask for a letter of recommendation. For us, it is important to know that this person is a good person and have qualifications to apply for this fellowship. The only thing I could mention that any reference letter any reference letter, recommendation letter should include like name of a referee that will be giving you this letter. It should, or maybe it should, if it is an organization, it should be headed paper. There should be contact details. It would be nice if a referee will mention information like how long he knows you and maybe assess your skills or accomplishments. So we need to know where you meet, and why he wants to recommend you. Should the application form be submitted in PDF or any other formats? So whatever is Word and PDF versions will be accepted. So if you find it's more convenient to send in PDF, please go ahead. We have the section action timeline. Can I plan starting the activities from September 2019? We don't mind if your activities are planned to start in September, but they have to be completed by the end of November. If you are confident that you will manage to complete your action within 3 months, go ahead. How long will be the capacity building activities? Well, it is hard to advise here how long, because it's up to an applicant to design the action. You have to have in mind what you plan to do and how you're going to reach your planned goals. And based on that, so you have to select how long will it take to design the capacity building activities. So it's very difficult to advise on this issue. Monica, would you like to add anything on that? Should I schedule all
yeah, I'm here.
Yes.
I'm here. In fact, we are receiving some more questions on the action and to the questions about the extent to which the action can be changed during implementation. And I think maybe it's a good moment to talk about that as well, just to make it very clear. On the capacity the capacity building activities, I think, yes, it depends very much on what kind of project you have in mind. There is no one size fits all for this. It has to be relevant for what you want to do. It has to make sense. But in terms of to what extent you can change the action during the implementation, there are certain things that you for sure cannot change, and can confirm that as the master of the fellowships here. So the budget, you cannot get more than the maximum that is mentioned in the call. So the maximum for your projects will be 5,000 euros per project. This cannot be changed. Also, the duration, normally you cannot go beyond the maximum that Anna mentioned of 6 months. Unless there are some, I guess, very specific circumstances that we would then need to discuss and agree on. But you should, when you design your project right now, you should do it based on the assumption of maximum 5,000 euros, maximum 6 months. Other changes, if those changes are, basically triggered by things that happened and are outside of your control, which can happen, of course. You wanted to, implement certain activities in the community, and something that is completely outside of your control is preventing you to do that, and you need to come up with solutions for that. It's something that you need to discuss with us. And then, of course, we can try to find a solution that works for everyone. So that's it in terms of the extent to what extent you can change your action. But Anna, would you like to add something else here?
Yes, maybe? I would like to point out that our webinar is aimed just how we are going to prepare a successful application. Imagine that put yourself into the shoes of the evaluators. They clearly wrote that the action should be implemented before the end of November. And you're writing a proposal and saying, well, I would like to implement it 8 months or 10 months or 1 year. What do you think how they will react on that? They will say, oh yeah, good guy, they will just reject. So be careful on that. So that's why I highly advise to read the guidelines. And if the timing is stated there, try to fit your proposed action into the 6 months period. While maybe you need to reduce the activities or something, or foresee some kind of preliminary results, and then continue later with the follow-up activities or something. But make sure that your proposed implementation plan includes 6 months, May to November, not longer. It can be shorter within this period of time. I mean, it could start in September and then in November. This is fine. This depends on your availability, on your vision when these activities should be implemented. But don't go further than November. So this will not be highly appreciated. This will not be appreciated by the selection committee. Okay, we move further. Should I schedule all capacity development events for the project period? Well, I read this question as that should I give the exact dates or exact at least months for the activities? Well, we would like to see a preliminary plan where at least you can state what activity will be implemented in which month. So this will be preliminary planning. It might be slightly changed later, so you can move one event from 1 month to another, but we would like to see the volume of work for each month. We would like to see when you're going to implement most of your activities. The other questions that I can see here, maximum fee rates for mentors. You can just don't have maximum. You have a budget of 5,000 euro, maximum one, and it's up to you to distribute and agree with the mentors. So we can't advise on this issue. So you have to implement your action within this amount of money. So nothing else I can add here.
Should we, maybe I'm sorry if I missed that, should we also touch on the question of co-financing? There is a question on co-financing.
Yeah.
Maybe just to say that we don't have any requirement for co-financing, but of course it's nice if you can get some additional funding on top of the funding that we are providing you, so you can have more of an impact, but it's not like in other cases where you have a requirement for a certain percentage of co-financing, because this is not a normal project grant per se, as Anna was saying. It's an individual fellowship. But if you do want to use the fellowship money for something where you already have some other resources and have a bigger impact, I don't think that's a problem. Have we had that situation, Anna?
Yes, well, in the previous call, we had one action that was actually, there was a proposal for co-financing, and we considered that. Well, it is possible if an applicant would like to propose it, but it should be clear from the proposed action and proposed budget where money are coming from and what they will be used for and what the results are to expect. So it should be explained why co-financing was seen as necessary, like necessary thing for the implementation. So, well, I presume this will be covered in the proposal.
There is also a question on the, or there is also a question on the countries that are eligible for project implementation. So I think there is quite, it's from Anna at 404. So I think there we can clarify that
implementation.
Yeah, so I think with the exception of internships and maybe the involvement centers, the actions should be in the Eastern Partnership countries, right? If you're understanding correct.
If internship can be done even in any EU countries or any other countries, right? We also, internship will be mostly aimed at the development of skills of a fellow, right? But we also would like to see changes in his community or targeted groups. So, and these changes should definitely be in his country of residence. And these countries of residence, we expect these 6 countries that we are covering. So that were mentioned before.
Yeah, so basically, it's, as I was saying, with the exception of the internship, which can take place outside of the region, the other actions you have in mind should take place and should be implemented
in the region,
in one of the countries. Yeah,
at least in one of the countries. We will stick with our questions first, and then we will respond to what we are receiving now.
Okay.
Questions from the chat, so otherwise we'll never finish. Maybe we can cover the questions that the participants are typing. So here we have action proposal, topics for proposed actions. There were a number of questions regarding the sectors. Monica, maybe I will ask you to cover more on that question.
If you've read the guidelines, you probably saw that there are no specific topics. So we don't want to restrict you to only certain topics or certain priorities. Again, also something that if you were in any case in other situations involved, for example, in calls, yes, you probably saw that there you have priorities and you have to focus on certain topics. It's not the case here for the fellowship. However, if you've carefully read the guidelines, you probably saw that we are giving a list of an indication of broad areas of activities that we think would be relevant for the fellowships. And those activities are basically coming from what we perceive to be the main roles of civil society in general anyways. So things like holding governments and public authorities in general into account for what they are doing. Things like if you are somehow interested in research, you can have if I could please ask if I mute their microphones, because this is really, it's making, it's quite disturbing. If you want to include research components, for example, into your actions, that's fine, but please keep in mind that research cannot be the main goal of your action. It has to somehow be linked to either recommendations to policymakers, or it has to be as a basis for raising awareness about certain issues in your communities. So it cannot be the main purpose, but it has to come within text, which is about either raising awareness or advocacy or any other type of interaction that you may think of with the decision makers in your country or region, or with the your target groups or communities. So that's why so in fact, this sums up what we wanted to tell you. There are no topics as such, but there are main areas of activities that we would expect you would have in mind anyways, such as the policy papers, such as the advocacy campaigns, and in general all types of activities that would help you better tailor, you or your organizations better tailor your activities to the citizens' needs. We had in previous calls, because of the way things are evolving, actions on e-transparency and e-participation. Again, these are just indications. These are not things that you should consider as topics that you absolutely have to fall within. So propose something that makes sense for you, something that makes sense for your community, and then that should be fine.
Well, maybe to add a little bit more, that if you propose only research, if your proposal will include only research, but it will not be sufficient. It will not be sufficient. It will not be well scored, because this will not have. This will not bring positive change to your community straight away. We will expect a little bit more to be developed, so a little bit more to be done. Only research will not be taken, will not be scored high. So I think we have already answered about question 2. Regarding the number of questions here mentioned, is anti-corruption campaign can be considered as a fellowship action? Well, yes, it's if you looked at that topics mentioned in the guidelines, it is there. Sport topics is also, please go ahead. If this brings positive changes in your community, it's also good. We would like to find out more about action plan and its implementation. It is not fully clear. It is not fully clear what exactly what is action plan and implementation. You have to propose action plan and also stages. Well, you will define the stages of implementation of your action. What is percentage of application or projects, in your opinion, really has sustainability after the end of financing? Well, we don't have such a figure at this stage, but at the same time, we consider that all our fellows who received funding they definitely develop their leadership skills, and this can be considered as sustainability of the actions they implemented. Some of the actions were, well, we have to just keep a good track of records. And these figures are changing maybe every day. That's why I'm not able to answer these questions with exact figure, but definitely I'm pretty sure the sustainability of the component of leadership skill development, it is there, and we can be proud saying, yeah, everyone gained new skills during our fellowship program, those fellows who are part of our alumni network. So maybe we can say,
if I may add here, if I may add a couple of words here. So I fully agree with Anna that here, when you think of sustainability, you should think very much also in terms of how the fellowship will impact you as a professional and as hopefully a future leader in your country. And from this point of view, yes, we think that all of our fellowships are sustainable because we are bringing all of these new skills to those who are benefiting from the fellowships. However, if in your proposal, when you put together your proposal for your projects, you already have in mind some sort of follow-up action. You know that because you're working, I don't know, with certain people, you have certain partners, they might be able to take on board and to continue some of the work that you're starting within the fellowship after the fellowship ends. Or if you think that you can somehow by cooperating with like-minded people from other countries, replicate your project in other countries. If you really think that's the case, then it is worth mentioning it in your proposal. But you shouldn't worry too much about it. You shouldn't include something just for the sake of including it. But if there is something that came out of the design of your action that you think is worth mentioning, then please go ahead and mention it. But the main idea that you should keep in mind here is that for us the sustainability comes from giving you more skills and giving you more opportunities to not only skills but also giving you more opportunities to interact with decision makers in your countries in the EU level, which is something that we have started to do more and more with the fellows from the previous years. So yeah, as I said, if there is something that you really would like to mention, do mention it in your proposal, but don't worry too much about it.
Okay, questions about budget. Maybe we have already answered a number of them. In case I require an expert or a mentor and I would like to hire him, what type of payment would I need to provide in the field of fees or technical expert and mentor fees? As I mentioned before, you have to first of all describe that in your proposal that you need a specialist, well, let's say a mentor or an expert for the implementation of your action, and define the role of this person in your action implementation. And based on that, you can include, as you can put it, if you see it's a mentor role or technical expert role, and include it, well, based on per hour, per day, but you have to state how you're going to pay this person. It depends of the involvement of this person in your implementation, maybe per day, per month, per week. I don't know what kind of role you foresee, and depend of that role, so you will include these costs into your budget. Number two, cost of conference seminars. Does it mean the participation in conferences and seminars that will help me to acquire certain useful skills to better execute my project and develop my leadership skills? Well, if, for example, instead of internship, you decide to participate in specific schools or seminars and you have something in mind, you can include participation. So you can include this activity, participation in seminar, and the cost associated with this participation will be included, like what this be. It could be seminar participation fee. This will be maybe international or national travel. It could be per diems during participation. Depends what is involved in that activity. But don't forget to include all the costs. If it is visa, as I mentioned before, visas, insurances. But you have to have in mind what exactly you are going to. It's not like, oh, I probably will participate in something during that 6 months, and that's why I included costs. This will not work. So we would like to know what kind of seminar you plan to attend, where, and what skills you plan to gain during that participation. It's not just about just to travel and have a great time. This participation should be aimed to development of your leadership skills. I would like to know more about eligible costs, for example, about training course fees, limits, and daily rates for mentors. Well, again, I think I have already mentioned that you can include this, but participation or in training course should be part of your proposal, and this should be clearly described why you think that this will help to develop your leadership skills and why this will bring positive changes in your communities. So make sure you will clearly describe this. Limit of daily fee rates, we don't have guidelines on that. Well, it depends how much mentors will be involved in your action. So if you would like to pay all 5,000 to your mentor, so I don't know if this would be a good idea. Have I got it right that the fellowship fund can't be allocated as a salary paid to the fellow? Yes, this is correct. Fellow will participate in networking events held abroad. Do we have to consider consular fees associated with the visa obtained in the budget? If so, what countries will it be? All successful applicants will join alumni network of our fellows. And within this alumni network, we are organizing a number of events during the year where we expect that new fellows will participate. All costs associated with participation in such events will be covered by the project, and they shouldn't be budgeted in your fellowship application. These are additional benefits in participating in this program. How to calculate and reduce costs? Good question. Well, first of all, you have to think what kind of expenses might occur during the implementation. Secondly, you have to Google it to explore what people are saying, maybe send a few emails and quotes, receive few quotes. How much will it cost to, for example, to develop and print out a banner, or how much will it cost to print or to rent a venue or something else? So ask your friends. What else Monica, do you have any other advices? So you have to explore this topic yourself. So no one else can basically advise you how to calculate it.
Yeah, so I think here you just need to apply a very commonsensical approach. Like Anna was saying, for certain things you can ask for quotes from companies or from service providers. For other things you need to do a very short sort of market research to see how much that those items usually cost. You can ask your friends, you can ask your colleagues, you can ask your family, you can refer to other projects that you are maybe putting together. It's never an easy thing to do. So you just need to use all of the common sense possible to try to have some estimates that are relatively accurate for the different items that you will have in there. It's always good to leave yourself a bit of margin in case you underestimate certain costs. Obviously, it's always a matter of keeping a decent balance and not inflating then other costs just for the sake of it. So we don't have any maximum per type of expense. We don't have any thresholds for specific items. It's just the maximum for the overall fellowship that you already know of, and other than that, within your budget, you have to try to estimate your costs as accurately as possible based on all of the information you have available. There is no simple answer to that. We can't unfortunately help you too much here, because you know a lot better than us how much things cost in your city, in your country, and that's the best. Just use your best guess. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I also wanted to advise on another source of information. You probably can go to our project website, look at the profiles of the current fellows, and get in contact with them. Maybe they can help with some of the questions regarding the budget. So this would be another advice, or otherwise you can contact those fellows who have some kind of similar topic, similar action that might help you to estimate the cost. So just get in contact with these people and just talk to them. Okay, are the following costs allowable under the fellowship? Purchase of a web domain, hosting for a certain period of time, purchase of specific software intended to implement the envisaged project activities. Well, probably yes, if these costs are necessary for achieving planned results. So you definitely can include these costs into your budget. But if you just would like to obtain all these and do nothing, there is no specific objectives of your action apart from just getting web domain and get the software. So then this will not work.
And then, of course, for issues like hosting, obviously, you should be covering only the hosting for the period of the fellowship action. So, you should try, as Anna was saying, the most important thing is that this kind of, all of your costs are clearly related to your activities. And then on top of that you limit whatever payment you're making, whatever purchase you're making to the time period of the fellowship action as well. So try to keep those things in mind when you put your budget together.
Okay. Now we come into the question regarding host organizations. Do I necessarily have to have a mentor or operate within a certain civil society organization to be eligible for fellowship? No, well, as I mentioned before, so to have a mentor or to have internship, it is not obligatory. It depends on the idea of your action. And if you think it is necessary to have it, you will include it. If not, so it's up to you. Is it required to have an arrangement or definite commitment of a particular EU or EAP host? If you have planned to have an internship, ideally, it would be nice to have preliminary arrangements to get in touch and with the organization, discuss timing. There were a couple of cases with the previous fellows when they had arrangements. They had preliminary arrangements, but they never discussed the timing for internship. And then an organization was not able to take this fellow during that implementation period. So that's why we highly advised to discuss with the host organization when you plan to come, what you plan to study, what kind of skills you expect, so the people who will be working here will be available and can reserve time for you, and this means so the period spent in that organization will be more effective. But if you plan to have an internship, you have a plan what kind of skills, what kind of let's say training program you would like to get, but you haven't managed to secure preliminary arrangements. This is okay. You probably we can do this later, but you have to be proactive. If at the moment I do not have host organization, can I find it before the project implementation period? So as I said, so it would be nice to have that arrangement, but if not, it will not prevent you from submitting application. Can you provide an example of an organization? If yes, can a host or a partner of a project be a co-working or non-profit organization? Not clear question. Maybe we can discuss this a little bit later with the person submitted that question. I would probably will stick to the question 5. Now, please advise on how to choose a mentor and requirements for them. Well, again, so as I mentioned before, you will need a mentor if you feel that in some fields of your action, you are not confident and you need someone more experienced to guide you. In this case, you need a mentor. And for this specific work, so you have to define yourself what kind of person would be ideal to guide you in the process of implementation of your action or in the process of completing certain parts of the action, maybe one of the activities only. It is not possible to give that advice right now. Monica, would you add anything here?
No, I don't think I can add much here at this stage.
Okay.
On the mentor.
Yes. In the guidelines, okay, I'll just then stick to the other. In the guidelines, it is said that the location of action can serve the EU as well. Could you please elaborate on this issue? May the fellowship be held in an EU country at a host organization? Well, as I mentioned before, so it is possible to have an internship in the EU, in the host organization, but only internship for the action proposal will not be sufficient. You also have to do something else. We do understand that you go to a host organization, you gain some skills, some knowledge. You also have to show that you are able to implement the gained skills and knowledge in your country. There should be some proposed activities that will bring positive changes in your community or in your target group. I have contacted 3 potential host organizations, but none of them agreed to be my host organization. What shall I do? There is one question here. First of all, when you're contacting your potential host organization, you have to give a clear indication when you plan to come, why you selected this organization, and what training program, what knowledge, skills you would like to receive during the period you will be with them. I think in most of the cases when you are contacting organization and asking them exactly what you would like to get from your internship, well, in most of the cases, the organization would be happy to take you on board, especially when you mentioned that you will pay them a small amount of money. Well, there will be an incentive for them. This is one thing. Secondly, if you are still not successful, you can make a proposal on your foreseen study program, and you can continue search. There are plenty of civil society organizations in the region and also in the EU. I'm sure you can find a perfect post organization for yourself, and you will get skills. In case you will not be able to do so, we as a project might try to help you to get in contact with the organization we know. But at this stage, I can't advise anymore. So it is up to an applicant to be proactive. Okay, we are coming to the end of questions. So maybe we can answer now the questions that were submitted to at the chat.
And I think it's also the moment to encourage everyone to write additional questions if we haven't answered the questions till now. Maybe just for 10, maybe we can give ourselves 10 more minutes.
Yeah, there was a question, where can I find the previous project? So you can see the profiles of the fellows at our website and read the information about the actions they implemented. You can find these people on Facebook.
Someone was also asking about the budgets of the previous projects, and if I'm not mistaken, the budgets are not publicly available. But
yeah, they are not publicly available. Why I suggested just look at the actions, and probably the description of the action can give you a hint who might give you an advice. Or, well, especially like if you are going to implement in your country, it might worth to talk to current fellows from your country. They can give you more information. Based on their permission, I can share some contacts. So you can contact me and tell, okay, so I would like to contact this or that person. I will put you in touch.
We also have a question on whether it is allowed to prepare a proposal to develop an ongoing campaign. So I guess there we would need to have a bit more information. In general, we don't provide support to existing projects, which is a different thing.
Yes, well, there is a question of double financing here, and it will be in some cases impossible to see what have been already done or financed. So ideally it should be a separate action.
We have a question on whether an internship in England is eligible. Well, I guess they will still be part of the EU when the deadline closes. So yeah.
Well, I would not propose this. Well, you never know what happened at the end of.
Yeah. Well, it has to be justified. We have to understand why necessarily England. But yeah, I mean, leaving jokes aside, it's something that you can propose.
Well, you can propose maybe an option saying that, okay, I have in mind these 3 or 5 organizations to have me for internship. And then and submit such applications. I mean, your application including a list of organizations that you're considering. Otherwise, I can't see any other option in this case, especially with England. And what happened in March, we don't know.
There was another question on a sample for a recommendation letter from the host organization. I don't think we can provide that, and there is no template as such. I think Anna was mentioning previously during the webinar that, well, you should your recommendation from a host organization for your internship, I guess. Do we have, Anna? Do we have any particular expectations here?
Well, I can't got the question. Is it about letter of recommendation or letter confirmation from the host organization?
Yeah, that's not clear. That's not very clear from the question. Could you confirm, Maxim, if you are referring to a letter of recommendation or a letter from a host organization where they confirm that they can accept you to be with them for a while? For the letter of recommendation, we don't have any template or anything of the sort. The idea is that the letter of recommendation gives us a feeling of who you are as a person, where your interests lie, and ideally your previous involvement in your community and your leadership potential. So it should be, I think, around along those lines, but it's not. We don't have other clearly specified requirements. Anna, if you want to add something.
Well, as I mentioned before, we would like to see if it is a letter of recommendation, so a personal letter or organizational letter. Well, organizational, ideally, it should be on the headed paper. If it is a personal one, we would prefer if the person who is giving you recommendation include contact details and also mention the name, mention when you've been working together or whatever, and how long, and maybe give a brief assessment of your skills or your accomplishments. So we will have a feeling that someone know you and you are a nice person and you're really skillful and you are, well, whatever, and should be date on that letter. So this is usual.
Yeah, there's another question on including the costs of a web platform for the creation of a web platform. I think it's in line with what we were discussing when we were talking about eligible costs and the budget. So it's not ineligible by any means. So you can include the costs of creating a web platform, but it has to be clear what the purpose of the platform is, how it links to your other actions, to your other activities included in your action proposal. So it has to be something, it has to be part of something bigger, and it has to be linked to other activities. Anna, would you like to add anything here?
No, this is this is the same, nearly similar question to the one about the web domain and software. So you have to clarify in your action, as Monica said, in your action proposal, what it is for and how it is linked to the objectives of your action. Thank you.
There is another question.
Any other question?
There's another question from Anastasia on a media-related project that she's been self-financing in Ukraine so far. And she's asking whether she can strengthen it with the help of the fellowship. I mean, I guess using the funding from the fellowship to for her media-related project. And I think that's not a problem as such, provided that you don't have already external funding. But from your question, I understand that you don't have this external funding coming from somewhere else. So if it's something that you started on a volunteer basis because you wanted to improve something in your country and you think it works, I don't see any problem why you wouldn't include in your proposal for the fellowship something that would be a follow-up to that action or a continuation to that action. No?
Okay, yeah, well, nothing to add. Where should include the communication plan? Well, this should be part of the action proposal. as it is stated, I hope you have, your communication plan will include into the main body of the action proposal, so somewhere one of the headings. We have Cinziana who don't hear anything. Maybe she can read the post before how to fix the problem.
Yeah. Are there any other? Yes, maybe because some people were still asking. The webinar was recorded, is being recorded right now, and you will be able to access it on the web. On our website. So there's another question on a
can be
university.
Yeah. Well, we had an example from the first call when a university was a hosting organization for one of our fellows. So it is possible, but you have to be careful regarding usually universities are states governed, and there are some bureaucracy there in terms of taking people for internship. So you need to talk to be in contact with the university and see what other see what kind of mentor fees they will be taking, insurances, and what kind of access to libraries you will receive. It depends. So, but you need to be in touch with an organization to clarify these issues.
Yeah, I think it depends exactly what you want to do and why you think a university would be best suited to host you as an organization, and why this should be done in the context of our fellowship program, because there are many other EU-funded programs and projects that are working specifically with universities and with higher education institutions in general. And we are obviously not focusing on that. We are focusing on civil society organizations and civil society actors in a wider sense. So while it's not ineligible as such, with the important footnote of what Anna was saying, that generally a lot of the universities are either profit making or state owned, which you have to keep in mind. We would also need to understand why a university as host organization would make sense in the context of the fellowship program. So yeah. It's just there is a lot more explanation needed there, I think. Okay, you're welcome.
Any other questions?
I think we can conclude, and maybe it's worth. Yes. This will be available. The recorded webinar will be available on the website, so don't worry about that.
And the presentation also will be available at the project website. So we probably will conclude here. We will also have another questions and answers session late in January. Please look at our project website. It will be announced the timing. If you have any other questions, please, you are free to email to me and I will provide answers. Thank you very much for participating.
Maybe it would be worth mentioning, Jen, one thing, when was our deadline for responding to queries from candidates, Anna?
This is 2 days before the deadline. Because
okay.
It will.
So that's an important thing for everyone to keep in mind. If you forgot to ask us something now during the webinar, you still have time to do it. So
one last thing I just recalled. Some of the people already submitted their applications, and if they are participating now and they feel that they would like to revise their applications and their proposals in line with the information that you received today. So please resubmit your applications, but you have to clearly state that this is resubmission. Please, you have to email this to me and say, disregard the previous version and use the one I have attached. So this is the newer one, so they will not be misled with the previous application. So you have a chance to just to revoke it, to revise it, to maybe add a few more things. I have no more comments, no more questions are coming. Thank you very much for thank you very much for joining us today. Looking forward to receive your applications and your questions if you have any. Good luck. Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. And do apply, all of you. Bye.
Bye-bye.